is a cosmetologist at the Razor's Edge in Norton. So, Karen, when you are ready.
Hello. Yes, as she said, I am in Norton. I have been a cosmetologist for 28 years. I went to school in Manhattan. The school that I went to is no longer um they they're not in session anymore now. There are two schools there in Manhattan, but I don't know if one of them went in where I actually went to school. But cosmetology is a 1,500-hour course that takes you approximately a year to do, depending upon if you take any breaks in there. When I went to school, there were no breaks. You had Thanksgiving Day off, you had Christmas Day off. Any other days that you took off was completely up to you. Just know that any day that you took off, you had those additional hours to add on to your quote unquote graduation date. You kind of have a projected date when you first start, and then any hours you miss up until that point, you just add on. When you go, you're going to learn all of the techniques of men's haircuts, women's haircuts, the perming, all the different kinds of coloring, the highlights, the covering gray. You'll learn a section on nails, manicures, pedicures, acrylic nails. Now they have a lot more techniques with the shellac, the dip, the gel nails. You'll get a section on all of that. And then you also have your skincare, the aesthetics part of it, where you learn the facials and waxing, and they might even do some of the lashes now. Some of that is additional. It depends upon what school that you go to, whether you're actually able to get the lashes, get the whole certification for that or not. But after you've gone, I believe it was like 500 hours. Then you do all your practicum and everything. You're live on mannequins. Right then at the very beginning, you start pretty much day one, you're on mannequins. And then I believe it's after you get about 500 hours, then you go on the floor. And that is when you're actually working on actual clients with the help of instructors. Um, it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and you just learn a lot while you're there. But I will tell you, you're going to learn way more out in the field once you take on a job. There's several different ways that that happens. When I first got out of school, I came back to my hometown, which is Norton, and I worked for a gal for 6 years, and I worked on commission. And basically what that means is she got 70% of the profit and I got 30% of the profit, but she paid for everything. She had the building, she paid for all the overhead, she paid for all the color, any supplies that I would need, and I just made 30% of that. The great part of that is it meant no startup cost for myself. I basically came in and I worked, and she paid for everything and I just made a wage. With cosmetology, the one thing that you have to remember is that you have to be patient. It takes a long time to build up a clientele. There's a lot of patience. There's a lot of days you sit there and you wait for the phone to ring, and that's why commission was a great way for me to start. The other way that she did pay me was when I sold products, any hairsprays, any polishes, anything like that. I made 25% of that as well. After I was there and I worked for her for 6 years, she retired, and she was kind of a young retired gal. So it kind of left me scrambling a little bit. I was able to stay at the place that she was, but another salon in my hometown, downtown, was selling her business. And at that age, I was 25, and it was so scary at 25 to think that I was going to buy my own business, but that's what I did. It's been a great thing. I've loved it. At that time, it had two stations in it, and I have that gal that I bought from decided to stay for a while with me. And I've had several different stylists come and go since then, move because they got married or move, with different job opportunities closer to their families and everything. And so I did do commission with a few of the first ones that started. But then after that, it became I started having a family and it just became a lot easier for me to do booth rent. So I have booth rented to several gals. And what that is, they pay a certain amount of money, say $300 per month. They pay their monthly fees. They pay for all of their products. So anything that would pertain to what they would do on a day-to-day basis, whether that's their polishes, their colors, their caps, their foils, all of that is on their end. But then what they're paying for is the advertisement that I've had, the phone is on me, all of the overhead, the building, the heating, the electrical part. So there's a few different ways of doing that when you start out into the business, but that's kind of what has worked out best for myself in growing a family. Um, I do have to say that it is a fun industry to be in. I love it. I love my job every day. You do want to be a people person. Visiting with people is huge. You visiting is one thing, but really, I have found in my industry, I feel like listening is probably more important, but being able to have those people skills to visit with people, if you don't really enjoy visiting with people now, it might not be something that you're going to love doing forever, but it is fun. It is more than just what meets the eye. It is more than just polishing nails and putting designs on there. That is a huge part of it, but more so being able to visit with people and just basically make them feel good about themselves. So, you know, during a day, there's a lot of day-to-day stuff that you will deal with. In my line, I do not have a secretary, so I am answering the phone. I'm taking care of clients, whether that's foiling, whatever, you're always pausing and they get used to that. They know it, it depends upon what salons you've been to, how they do that. Some have a receptionist, some don't. Um, you're dealing with people that walk in that think they want a walk-in appointment. Sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't. You're selling product. It's a high-paced job. But the one thing that I would say, if you are seriously interested in it, I would say definitely make sure that you go job shadow somewhere. I've had several students that come from their school and they job shadow. I have one currently that comes in job shadows. She shows up at 2 o'clock and leaves at 2:45. It's 45 minutes every day. She's doing it for a full 9 weeks. Um, it's she gets to see a lot. Sometimes I laugh because I think she's getting in on me styling somebody's hair. Sometimes she comes in on the middle and I'm foiling somebody's hair. Sometimes she gets in on the end and sees the finished product of a full set of nails. You just kind of that's kind of the job shadowing. Now, if you went through a full day, you would obviously see the start to finish what you could do, but I'd highly encourage you to job shadow. It is something that you really can see, what goes on in a full day or segments of it. You get to see what you deal with and how busy it is. And there's slow times as well, but this way you at least get to check that out. But on the salary end of it, I am a firm believer in that you get out what you put in. If you are one that makes yourself available and you are willing to sit there and wait on the clientele to show up, it is going to be very, very profitable to you. If you feel like you're taking on a second job, which I completely understand, starting out, it is very hard that you're taking a second job. You just need to make sure to be able to build a clientele that you're making sure that you're leaving yourself available for clients to be able to give yourself time to build that clientele. I will tell you right now in Norton, I think I figured up there's probably roughly around 10 stylists and one barber. There are a few gals that only do nails and just so they take on that nail tech, whether they're doing just nails, pedicures, whatever in their day. I will say, I truly think with 10 stylists, a few nail technicians, and a barber, I I truly believe that everybody is busy. I think that you draw from all the communities around. If you are available and you get your name out there, I I think that I think that everybody can be busy. And so I guess when I'm saying that, Norton stylists and barbers are supported. I mean, many families are supported by just one small community. I know you go about 30 minutes away, and I know that that isn't the case in some of those towns, that they don't have as many stylists, but I firmly believe that they stay just as busy. You're as busy as you want to be, you just have to stay with it. There are a few drawbacks with being a cosmetologist that I feel like speak for themselves. There are no benefits with it. You create your own insurance, your retirement. But the one thing about it is there's job security. Hair and nails grow. You're always going to have a job. So I that's pretty much mine in a wrap of my experience with it. So Chantel,
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that there is just so much that goes into this. And I think it's cool that we had the entrepreneurship section right before you because you are also an entrepreneur. There's so many things that go into running a business. And so a couple of questions I had were just, so what is your advice to students on building that clientele and being part of the community to bring people into your salon?
I, mostly being available. That is the biggest thing to me. Advertising yourself, running a special, being able to maybe conjoin with another business that if they purchase something there, give some kind of a kickback. If you go into the um, one of the stores there that you can set up with, say it's a boutique, if they purchase something there, ask them to, if they bring back in 5 cards to them, that they get a discount at. I mean, just coordinating and working with somebody that, that already is an established business, that they can
Mm,
have a reason to bring them into your salon. One of your clients, somebody that's already come into them, give them 5 cards. If they disperse them and 2 of them come back, they get 20% off of their next, something like that, to be able to market yourself.
for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Salina South is asking, there are a lot of cosmetology schools. Are there any you would recommend?
So, being out here, I'm going to tell you the ones that I hear of gals going to and having great success. There's been a few gals that have come back from school and they've been at the school. Bellis is a name that I've heard in Manhattan, and then the Hayes Hair Academy. I've heard a
Mm,
lot about both of those. I'm not going to exclude any school. Just because I don't hear about them does not mean that they're not good. I think that it's worth looking into every school that you're interested in the area, and finding out what's the best fit for you.
mm, great. So, obviously we kind of asked this question to Hannah too, but what are some of the behind the scenes things that go into running your business that maybe students wouldn't know about right away?
So I'm going to say probably the craziness of, depending upon how you take that job. Like myself, I've never been at a job where we had a receptionist. So learning to multitask as much as what
Mhm.
you do in a day is probably the biggest thing, because in 10 minutes, you could have your client there. You could be working on them. The phone ring 3 times in 10 minutes. 2 people show up. Somebody need a product. Somebody need
Mhm.
to make an appointment. I would say learning the multitasking is probably the hardest thing. Being able to, that high pace, that high energy, and being able to
Mhm.
give yourself to each one of those people.
Yeah, absolutely. So Norton is asking, what were some of the hardest techniques that you learned in school?
Gosh, that's been a bit ago. The hardest techniques, I would say, um, learning color is probably the hardest, I feel like,
Mm,
to know what level everybody's hair color is, taking them from a natural color to, a more unnatural, learning all those techniques and learning all
mm,
the levels and knowing how to apply that with color, whether that's permanent, whether that's semi-permanent, whether you're adding highlights and toning. I would say color is the most challenging
yeah,
field.
yeah, absolutely. Lakeside is asking, how does AI affect marketing in cosmetology?
Oh, it makes it so interesting to get all these
Mhm,
pictures in and to be able to tell them that this is not something that really we can achieve. When you have those super icy whites, if you are not naturally an icy white, and I mean that you have gone that way, you are not going to get that in their 2-hour service ever. And for somebody
mhm,
to realize that, but then also to see the AI and to know you will never, ever, ever achieve that. Or the
mm,
really, you might be able to achieve it for 2 days. Maintaining that is
mhm,
never going to happen. And you will not get that in 2 hours. That just, I mean, it is definitely a struggle in being able to tell somebody, this is AI. I
mm,
mean, I think that they probably kind of question it before they come in, and then you have the ones that are unrealistic that they, they think you can wave your magic wand and they're going to get that in 2 hours.
mhm,
Making somebody realize that AI is tricky.
for sure. Yeah. Natoma is asking, do most hairstylists do their own hair? Mhm,
You know what? I think that they can do a little tweaking on it. I think when I went in with the gal, when I very first started working my very first job, she did do her own hair. I've done tweaking on my own hair, and I've colored my own hair. I've done those things, but I don't prefer to do my own hair, not because I can't, but it's kind of fun to be on the other side of it as well. So.
mhm, yeah. Selina is asking, what are the most rewarding and the most difficult aspects of your job?
The most rewarding is having somebody come in and they have this idea of what they want, and you go through the whole process with them and turn them around to the mirror, and they are absolutely in love with, or
Mm,
getting that message just a little bit later, a couple days later, that says, I am absolutely in love with my hair. Thank you for what you do. That is the most rewarding part of it.
mm,
Difficulties is dealing with difficult people. And
mm,
that's in every industry. You have to learn how to deal with people that are going to rage towards you, complain, finding that the communication, having
mhm,
good communication and never coming back at them. I mean,
mhm,
you're the customer is always right. You
mhm,
have to live by that. You have to live by that. I mean, what you had the idea they wanted and what they actually got may be different, and working that out. That's why communication is the biggest part of the cosmetology program, I feel like.
for sure. Lakeside is wondering, what high school classes do you recommend for someone who wants to go into cosmetology?
I'm going to say art was probably some of the things, because they teach you the color wheel. The color wheel is something you use daily, and that is in nails, that is in hair color, it teaches you shape, it teaches you different ways to look at any kind of objects. I Art definitely helped me tremendously.
Mm. Yeah, I've also heard from cosmetologists that chemistry is important, especially with like mixing, the hair colors, the hair dyes together. So, yeah.
I do agree. I do
Hmm.
agree.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's awesome. Then another question, what do you do if a client changes their mind mid-cut or style?
Mid style, you can conform to. If they change their mind mid cut, it depends upon how big of a difference it is.
Mhm.
Communication is part of that, because I am one that if they are making a major change, I do ask one last time, are you sure you're ready for this? Are we ready? This is what you want to do. So I communication is the biggest part of it, but after you've made that big cut, there is no going back. There just
Mhm.
isn't.
Mhm.
I don't have that magic wand again.
Yep, absolutely. Awesome. Well, that's all the questions I see in the chat. So thank you so, so much, Karen, for giving us
Yeah,
part of your day and for just telling us about your business and what that looks like. We appreciate
yeah.
it.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, guys. So it's 11:30.